Okay, well, I'm super excited today to be talking to Whitney Braun, who is a contributor to a recent anthology published by InScribe Press. The name of the anthology is Creativity and Chaos: Artistic Endeavors for Trying Times. So nice to see you, Whitney.
Hi.
Yeah, so good to see you. So I was interested when I was looking at, the table of contents. I have not read all the pieces in the anthology yet myself, but I see that yours is a poem.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of poetry. Normally I'm a fictional writer. But from time to time I dabble. I find that usually I lean towards poetry when I have something I need to work out.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, this is kind of where this one stemmed from. Um, is kind of how that started. So yeah, it's different for me to have something poetry published, but
Yeah,
okay.
well, because that's the thing. Like I know you as a novelist, and I've read, well, the worth the chance, worth the risk, worth the wait. And I
Yeah.
just saw, I didn't realize this. There was another one, Worth It All, which like, what? There's another book?
Yeah, it's a Christmas novella.
Yeah. Plus, I see you've got some other new ones out too. So I need to reload my to be read list or file in Kindle because I do love your novels. I just love them.
Oh, thank you.
And so that's how I know who you are is through your novels. But yeah. So when I saw that, and it's called Roots, is the name of the poem. So I'm assuming there's something there about like where you're from, or I don't know. Do you want to just give us a little taste of what that poem's about?
Yeah, okay, so during the pandemic, actually, when we were all watching church services online, I would paint or draw or doodle kind of while I was listening to the service, and I made this watercolor piece of it's the anatomy of lungs, but it's actually as tree roots.
Oh.
And so anyway, it was just kind of something I was doodling in, and then I kind of came back to it. We've been going through a lot of big family changes with my son. And so anyway, so we've been just kind of digging through all of this things for diagnoses and appointments and assessments, and it just gets overwhelming. And I came across this art piece, and I just kind of felt like, okay, I'm floundering and I just have no roots, and I'm an avid gardener, so I relate a lot of things to how things start to grow. And obviously you need roots before you're going to see any results.
Mhm.
And so I just kind of started this poem. I was super overwhelmed, and it's just kind of about how we don't see anything at the start, like we're going through all these trenches, these hard times, and but what we don't see is that's actually what's starting the growth. And that's kind of what this poem is about, is just like you're going through all this tough stuff, and you're like, what is the point of this, you know? And it's all this, the fear, the anxiety, and you're like, good grief, I just wish I could see something come out of it. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden you kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, and the growth starts, and you're like, oh, this is why. So that's kind of what this poem is about. And we're kind of on the tail end now. So my son was actually just diagnosed with autism. He's 6, and so it was a late diagnosis accordingly. It's a whole big process, but anyway, so that was we were in the trenches of all of this, navigating this parenthood of like not what you expect when
Right.
you become a parent.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was kind of where this one kind of came from.
Wow. That's really actually deep, and it's so true that a lot of times in our walk with the Lord or in our Christian lives, trials seem to be the thing that really bring growth, you know,
Yeah,
fortunately.
totally.
And when you're going through a hard time, whatever it might be, or you're questioning, all those things, it's like, what's the point of this? But inevitably, when you look back, you can see, oh, wait, this is where this pain, out of the ashes comes
Yeah.
beauty, out of the trials comes, something good. So I love that. I mean, and I think that so there's been a lot of pieces that just from the people I've already talked to that are along the same lines because 2020 and COVID, it was a big deal, and I think we're still living through some of those after effects, and there are, trying times around us worldwide and all those things. So it's sort of at a macro level within your personal life, but also on a bigger global scale.
Mhm.
And yet God is so faithful because, he's helping us all to grow through,
Yeah.
through
Well,
the,
and that was another thing is like through the pandemic, like he was 2 when it started, and so we saw a lot of effects on him. He couldn't be around his peers. We couldn't register for swimming lessons, or these trivial things you take for granted, and then all of a sudden you can't do them.
yeah,
And so we thought, there was some symptoms, and we're like, oh, it's probably just because of the pandemic. and
yeah.
and so and then school starts and all these big changes in his life happen, and then of course it just kind of gets exaggerated, and it was just a lot for a long time. And I had always told my husband before we had a family that my biggest fear was to be a special needs mom.
Oh,
And I told him, I said, I'm terrified of this. Jesus was like, haha,
yeah,
gotcha. And it turns out it's the best thing ever.
yeah,
It's the hardest thing ever, but it is the best thing.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's the thing, right? We don't know what we really need or what we really would appreciate in life until
Yeah,
God gives it to us.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah. And so another thing that jumped out at me as you were talking is the whole idea of creativity, because I think that's also a theme that's running through this anthology, is that creativity is an outlet for our own, growth, or to help us navigate life, whatever. Um, and I'm interested because I also didn't know that you dabbled in the arts, so you do painting and stuff. Um, but that seems to be a truth, that creativity of some kind or another helps us to sort of navigate life's challenges, if you will.
Definitely.
Yeah.
For sure. I definitely leaned lots into the arts during the pandemic, being at home with a toddler and having nothing but time when you're, sick of changing diapers and playing with toys and whatever.
Yeah.
And that was, yeah, during the pandemic I leaned a lot into the arts. And then I always find that poetry is something I always lean into when I have a lot of big stuff going on. I read my husband's grandfather passed away, and him and my husband were very, very close. And this was the year before my son was born. And I remember like there was months I just wrote poetry, and I'm like, where is this even but then I figured out, oh, it's usually when I have something big to
Yeah.
deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then what I find interesting about that is, like, often, that's poetry or even journaling, like whatever, but a creative process is a way to deal with one's own, feelings in that. But then often God also then turns around and uses that to speak to somebody else, like your poem, for instance, this one, Roots, I'm pretty sure is going to, touch people's hearts, because people will feel, oh yeah, that's how I feel too, or I can relate to that,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's, not only does the creativity help us, but it also, God uses it then to, help other people.
Yeah, you just have to have the courage to share it, which sometimes I don't.
Yeah, which surprises me because you are a prolific author. You've got some wonderful, like, novels out there, like I said, and they're fantastic. So I don't know who's going to even be watching this, but read her novels. They're so good. Like, they're really good. I love your work. Um,
Thank you.
and who knows, all these poems, maybe one day you'll gather some of them together and put out a poetry anthology.
Maybe. My son loves he loves rhymes. So this one doesn't rhyme, but anyway, so I make a lot of funny things up for kids and poems and things like that because he just likes the sound of the rhymes. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That is so cool. So any other writing things that you've been doing recently that you can tell us about or
Well, the next manuscript is slow going. It's going at a tortoise pace, but it's on its way. Actually, just because my son and I read so much together, I've been kind of working on some Christian children's books. I published one about 2 years ago, my first children's book. It's called Sam and the Sunflower.
Oh, I saw
Um,
that. Yes, I
yeah,
too. That's cool. Very
yeah, and then actually I just I'm working on some so I illustrated that one. That was a whole new learning curve. But I have another book ready to go, like a Christian children's story. But I'm just working through the illustrations on that one now. So yeah, it's an exciting one. My son is already sick of hearing it. So we'll see. He might
yeah.
not read it when it's all done, but he's heard it a lot already.
Oh, wow, that's so exciting. That is awesome. I love to hear that, that you're combining your gifts, your artistic gifts along with your writing and stuff like that. And obviously, children's books are important. And, with your son and his particular needs, that's obviously where
Yeah.
inspiration came. Yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, the one that I wrote, the one I'm working on, is all about different bugs because we're going through a big bug phase in our house right now, and the differences of all of them. And it's this ladybug that gets quite insecure about he's not really able to do much, and he's comparing himself to all his friends, and it's something we've been navigating through the first year of kindergarten.
Yeah.
um so yeah, it's fun in that it's something he's interested in. It's got lots of rhymes. It's going to have some really colorful illustrations. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Oh, that's so neat. Well, I'm looking forward to that. And I have a lot of grandchildren, so I'm going to have to buy those. Good.
Perfect.
Christmas gifts in plan.
Exactly.
Perfect. Oh boy. Well, this has been really lovely. Is there a place online that people can see all of your work or connect with you in any way?
Yeah, all my books can be purchased on Amazon, and then you can find me probably the most active on my Instagram page.
Okay. And
Yeah.
can you share what's your handle
Oh,
there?
sorry. Yes, it's Whitney Braun author. Just
Cool.
all together.
All together. Well, that is fantastic. Really nice to see you, Whitney. I just really appreciate talking to you today and all the best in your new endeavors and with your family and lovely to talk to
Thanks.
you. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll hopefully talk again sometime. God bless.
Yeah. Okay.